I'll stop talking anyway. I'm going to say something about the reading we had from Romans this morning, about the different gifts that we have been blessed with, and how we need to make ourselves a living sacrifice, a type of sacrifice very different to the animal sacrifices that the members of the early church had known. Those would have been perfect, unblemished, dead animals brought before the altar. What Paul is talking about in his letter to the Romans, to a church that he never actually visited, though he said he would, a church he didn't personally know, is that we need to be living sacrifices, with all our blemishes, all our imperfections. We need to come before the Lord and make sacrifices while we are alive, sacrifices with our time, using the different gifts that we've been given. All times are strange. I'm sure the Romans thought that they were living in strange times, and particularly the Christians, being Christian, the early church, in an occupying state like Rome. They didn't feel safe, but they had to be countercultural. And that's what we're called to be as well. To use the gifts and talents that we've been given, whatever they may be. We've all been blessed with different talents. And I think something like this pandemic, which none of us here have ever known before. I think it's probably true to say that no one living has ever known anything like this before. Even if you were alive at the time of Spanish flu, you wouldn't be able to remember it. So what are our gifts? And how do we best use them here in Byker to help the community in which we are set? Or if we're not in Byker, if we're watching from somewhere else, I don't know where we're being joined from. We might not be being joined at all. We don't know where we're being joined from, so wherever we are, how are we doing the Lord's work in the community in which we're set? And we have many different gifts. We talked about gifts that Paul talked about specifically were gifts that are needed in the church. Prophecy and ministry in ministering, teaching, generosity and leadership and compassion. And yes, these are all gifts that we need in the church, but we need to remember that the church does not stop here. Worshipping is the starting point of what we do throughout the week. We come together to offer worthy worship to God, to Christ, as we are called to do. To always remember that Christ made the ultimate sacrifice for us, so the sacrifices that we make are in our lifetimes, for the communities in which we are set. And I also want to look back to communities from which we have come. We're all made of our history. We're here set in the community of St. Martin, wherever other people are there in their community, but we all have passed a community that we grew up in. And I've been considering this a lot lately, as I have had reason to go back and forth to where my parents' home was. Still is the home where I grew up, the home where I was born, and to discover how much of a part of the community they had, and how they were cherished, and how much they gave, and how, in a way, I have been formed by that community. And we must not forget the communities from which we came. Even if we cannot physically be there, remember them in prayer. Remember the people there in prayer, so people can be uplifted by the Spirit. I just want to say a few words. I have just said a few words. All I wanted to say was to remember that we are a living sacrifice. All we do is to bring our lives to the Lord. The church is one body with many parts, and we all have different gifts. But together we have the responsibility to build the community, in this strange time and always. But we must also not give into the danger of thinking, I am not worthy. We must neither be too modest or too boastful. We must recognise the gifts we have and help others to draw out their gifts. I think this time has brought before us brought to the fore gifts that people never knew they had, that people are being enabled to discover new talents and to work in different ways. And I think we need to remember also always where we have come from and where we are going and where we are now. And I'm going to end with somebody else's words. These are a reflection by the current rector of the church where I grew up, the church where my parents were married, and the man who will take my father's funeral next week. So these are the words of the rector of St. Mary of Finchley. Who do you say Jesus is? Stern confronter, wonder worker, message bringer, high royalty. Jesus is the Son of God, and through him the image and likeness of God is restored in us. Simon is remade. The faithless, deserting disciple is transformed. He is to be Peter, the rock, a title he can grow into. This is what he becomes in Christ. We too can be transformed. In the words of St. Paul, we offer up ourselves as a living sacrifice. We don't cling on to what we are. We let go of ourselves in an act of generous giving to God. We can only do this if we put our trust in God, having that relationship with Jesus which continues to seek to find out more. Who do you say I am? Our answer leads into opportunities to learn, to pray, to live and love. So let's do all we can to build up community and to take this worship out into the world, into whatever we are called to do this week. Amen.